All right. Well, out of respect for those that are here on time, I don't want to make you wait too long. I'm sure we'll have some more people join in, but welcome to our first roundtable of 2022, and one that's a little bit different. I'm Steve Alexander from MSP-Ignite. We're happy to bring this to our members and invited guests. And this time, it's actually a two-part roundtable, this being the first of the two. Really to discuss the Microsoft 365 new customer experience, otherwise known as a price increase, and SaaS security workshop. Our speaker today is Jim Lippy, the CEO of SaaS Alerts. And like all presenters, Jim presented me with this nice introduction, very formal about his experience. But Jim and I have known each other so long that I said, I'm not going to read this, right? I'm not going to actually go through this. And he said, you can talk about whatever you want. So I reminded him that Jim and I go back so far that I was actually at his college graduation. I tell people I was there to watch my cousin, Jason Alexander, get an honorary degree from Boston University. Every bit of that is true, except that Jason Alexander is not my cousin, and Jason Alexander's real name is not Jason Alexander. So, but I was indeed there. Jim graduated Boston University with my stepdaughter, and several people that have won Stanley Cup rings, by the way.
Yes, this is true.
So big hockey school, Boston University. Chris Drury was a freshman, Jim's senior year, which is pretty cool to get to watch him play college hockey. Yep. For those that watched hockey, Mike Greer was there, Jay Pandolfo was there, and of course, as an athlete, Jim chose to play football and stay away from hockey. But yes, so that's a different area. But more importantly, really, Jim and I didn't know each other back then. That's just a coincidence. Where I do know of him and subsequently learned more about Jim was when he was the CEO of Thrive Networks, a fairly large MSP that was eventually sold to Staples in 2006. And if you look back, that was the first major acquisition of an MSP to a larger company. I mean, obviously, Staples is pretty big. After that, Jim was the CEO of a company called Independence IT, which is actually where we met. We didn't really know each other. A third party introduced us, and Jim referred me to my very first consulting client after I left the MSP world and started doing business consulting. We've been connected ever since as he's moved along. Independence IT was also sold to CloudJumper. Jim eventually was part of Kaseya and really helped drive the growth of Kaseya for a period of time. And today he's the CEO of SaaS Alerts. And I'm going to let him share more about SaaS Alerts and what they're all about. He's also got another old friend, Ryan Riccardi, with him presenting, and Jim will do his introduction. These events are designed to be informational, educational, and interactive. So for those of you that are not on video, we want you to shut your email, log out of Teams and Slack, and actually participate in this. And please join on video. It's just easier to interact that way. I know this will be interactive. I've worked with Jim and Ryan many times. I'm going to turn it over to you, Jim, and let you take this away.
Great. Thank you so much, Steve. Appreciate it. It's always fun listening to your introductions. I have no idea what you're going to say. So we are here to talk about SaaS security monitoring, and we're going to do it in the context of the Microsoft price increase, or what they call NCE, New Commerce Experience. But in reality, like Steve said, it is literally just a price increase that they're asking you to go ahead and convey to their customer or your customer, mutual customer. So again, as Steve said, we want this to be interactive. So please ask questions as we go. We want this to be a workshop. This is not, we're going to share a lot of information about SaaS security monitoring, and we're going to challenge you to think about your business differently based on the context of SaaS security monitoring and where the market is going. So that's why we want it to be interactive. This is not us pitching you. You are going to have this, you're going to have to solve this problem, SaaS security monitoring, at some point, whether it's with us or someone else. We're here to educate. And ultimately today towards the end, Ryan Riccardi is going to take us through the product and ultimately show all of you how to register for our 30-day free trial, add yourself, and maybe a couple customers if you want. And then March 10th, we're getting back together. And what we want to do on March 10th is we want to take you through all the data that's been collected through the platform that you can then take back to your customer and demonstrate value. So hopefully you're going to find this valuable. And again, we want it to be very interactive. So with that, I'll move through the presentation. Steve already did a great job introducing me. It's my pleasure to introduce Ryan Riccardi, who is our Director of Account Management. Ryan's got extensive experience in cybersecurity and business continuity. We actually worked together at Kaseya for about 4 years. I actually interviewed Ryan at Kaseya, and to this day, I say that he is one of the best interviews that I ever had. So thanks for joining, Ryan, and Ryan is going to be presenting later on. So today's objectives. We're going to talk about the importance of protecting 365 in the mindset around a price increase in general. I learned, Steve mentioned that, our MSP was acquired by Staples back in 2006. I learned a really important lesson about price increases during my time at Staples. I'm going to share that. 2, demonstrate how every MSP can right-size their customers' costs and protection on 365, right? So this is an opportunity to try to take margin back. We're going to get into that a little bit. We're going to share some go-to-market messaging and customer-facing materials that we're going to give you that you can start to use any way you want. You're not going to find SaaS alerts on any of them because, again, we're not selling you. This is an opportunity to help you if you want to go down this road of SaaS security monitoring. And then Ryan is going to walk us through how SaaS alerts works to take advantage of that 30-day free trial. And then we're going to demonstrate how to take advantage, again, of the free trial, onboard your customers. And I just mentioned this to Steve as well. Regardless of what you do with us, we monitor, obviously, for 365, Google Workspace, Salesforce, Slack, Dropbox, IT Glue. We're actually the only third-party monitoring service in the world that monitors IT Glue. There's a lot going on in the world right now with tensions right now as they are in Ukraine. You've probably all seen the heightened cybersecurity threats out there and everyone alerting us to be more vigilant than ever. IT Glue is a very important application for those that use it. There's a lot of really valuable information in there that you do not want getting in anyone else's hands. So we're going to allow up to 500 MSPs that are not currently our partner, because all of our existing partners have the ability to monitor IT Glue and their own instance of whatever they want, free of charge with us. That's one of our principles here at SaaS Alerts is we believe that every MSP, if they're going to protect their customer effectively, they need to protect themselves first. So up until June 30th, we're going to allow every MSP, or the first 500 MSPs that decide they want to monitor 365 and IT Glue, you're going to be able to do that free with us. And then we're going to set up the action plan for the session that we're going to do on March 10th. So those are the objectives for today. For those that are not familiar with SaaS Alerts, we're the first ever real-time SaaS application monitoring and alerting platform specifically built for MSPs. Steve mentioned I am a former MSP. That's how we come at this platform. We want to empower you. We want to enable you to monetize your customers' usage of SaaS applications. It was once thought that SaaS was going to basically mean the end to MSPs, because there was no way years ago to be able to monetize it or add any value around SaaS applications, because it's all, the infrastructure is hosted someplace else. And whether it's Salesforce or Microsoft, they control the application, they control the infrastructure. So what can we do? We now know what we can do, and that's something that we're going to share. And that's why SaaS security monitoring has become a real important factor, I think, going forward for MSPs. So let's look at the traditional support model and why we exist. So the traditional support model, as you know, started with MSPs, dinosaurs like me and Steve, where we supported small business on-prem application servers, right? And those application servers were accessed by company-owned devices on company-managed networks. And I remember being in hundreds of sales calls as an MSP, and I remember specifically or end customers asking questions like, "Well, what do you do with the applications? How do you support applications?" And the pat answer back then was, "We actually don't support the applications. We support the infrastructure the applications live on. That's our job." That, in this day and age, it's no longer a good answer. It's really not an acceptable answer, because now we need, as MSPs, we need to support our small business customers shift to the cloud, and specifically SaaS applications. And these SaaS applications are being accessed now by many cases from personal devices on open networks or home networks, because everyone's working from anywhere right now. So this change in dynamics have opened up a security gap. It increases security issues and decreases revenue opportunities for MSPs. I'll never forget, it was probably at this point almost 2 years ago. This is back when I'm still at Kaseya, and I was talking to an MSP. We used to do these, what we call pulse checks. So basically, they're like health checks with our MSP partners. And they were very standard calls. I want to know about their business, how we can do better, blah, blah, blah. So I was going, this MSP in the Midwest, very nice gentleman, talking to me about his business, going through the normal stuff. I support 4,000 end customers or 4,000 end users. I have 900 servers for management. This time last year, I had about 1,200. I do Meraki switches. He keeps going on. I'm like, whoa. Can we back up for a second? You said that a year ago you were servicing 1,200 servers, and now you're at 900 servers. So you lost 300 servers under management in a year? He said, yeah. I said, how? Why? And he said, well, a lot of my customers are moving to SaaS applications. I'm like, okay, so what are you doing about it? He said, I don't know. What can I do about it? And it was just very matter of fact. And it really, it made a really big impression on me. And when this opportunity to become CEO of SaaS came up, late last year, I thought about that conversation and where we need to evolve to as an industry. And the use cases in real life are really prevalent. And so it's great we understand, where things have been and where things are and where things are going. But let's talk about the use cases that happen every single day within your customer base that essentially revolve around SaaS security monitoring or the lack thereof. So the first use case is an end user falls victim to a phishing campaign. And now a bad actor has those credentials on 365. As you, the MSP, how do you know? The standard answer that I get from people, well, we can log into the tenant and we can check and okay, great. But, I've got a credit card that I use just about every day. I only check the statement like once a month. Thank God I actually have my credit card alerts me if anything abnormal happens. I get alert on my phone. That's the same concept as SaaS security monitoring, right? You get alerted to things that are going on in your customer environment, and then you react to the things that are absolutely necessary on behalf of your customer. So that's one use case. Another use case is every third-party SaaS application under the sun wants to use your 365 credentials to log into their application. So 365 Google Workspace, we happen to use Google. I can show you my end user report in our platform, and it'll show you every third-party application that I've logged into using my Google credentials. So why is that important? Well, if you believe that 365 or Google Workspace, those applications are really tight and secure, great. What about all those other third-party SaaS apps? What if one of those was breached? They have those credentials already stored. So that means a bad actor, once they penetrate that, they can move lateral across and ultimately gain access to 365 or Google Workspace, whatever application we're talking about. So it widens the threat vector exponentially. And small businesses are using somewhere between 20 and 30 SaaS applications per company right now. Mid-market is 89 applications, SaaS applications per company. And then the third use case, and by the way, we monitor 130 different events and process over 5 million events per day right now. But the third use case is Steve and I are sharing information back and forth for this roundtable. We're doing it out of OneDrive. Well, if Steve and I were the average user, we're sending links back and forth, anonymous, and set not to expire. This is a bad combination. And most end users do it this way because it's the easiest way to do it. And they don't understand the consequences of doing it any other way. So what that does is it allows now anyone that comes across that link to gain access to OneDrive. And they can actually tunnel back through if they know what they're doing. So again, this completely widens the threat vector associated with what we call orphan links. So in our platform, if there's a shared link, like 2 months from now, right, Steve and I are no longer going back and forth. That OneDrive link has long since become useless, but it's still out there. If Laura was our MSP, she would see that this link has been dormant for 30 days. It's set not to expire, and it's anonymous. Terminate it. You got an alert now. Go do something with it. Terminate the link. Mitigate the exposure for your customer. So these are 3 specific use cases that we talk about that hopefully gives you some idea around how SaaS security works, how it can work, and ultimately how valuable it can be for you and your customer. So just a little bit about SaaS alerts. I joined the company January 20th, 2021. That's the day that we went general availability on the software. We had 10 beta MSPs at the time. 10 beta MSPs that thought we had something and they liked the product, but we weren't even charging them. Today we have 375, actually 395. I submitted this last week and I didn't update it. We're adding about 40 MSPs every month right now, about 8,000 end users a month. We've got over 120,000 users on the platform total, and we're processing about 20 million events minimum every single month. So we're seeing a lot of data. And one of the reasons why we want to give MSPs free monitoring for 365 and IT Glue for the next 90 days is because we've seen certainly an uptick in the last week. We see a lot of activity, and it's very persistent, but it's actually increased over the last week from Russia and from China. So ultimately, we want to try to protect as many MSPs as we can from brute force attacks and bad actors trying to get in to your important applications. So let's talk about the Microsoft price increase in the context of SaaS security monitoring. So Steve remembers, and if you've been in business as an MSP for a while, you remember the good old days when we monitored on-prem Exchange. I don't know about any of you, but back in the day at Thrive, we would charge $395 to monitor and manage an on-prem Exchange server. And that was a gravy train for us. We made a lot of money doing that. Everyone relied on Exchange, and it was relatively solid platform at the time, and it was just good margins. And then spot pricing came out, and we were able to host our own exchange, and that was awesome. We made a ton of money off of that. And then it's like Microsoft decided that people were making too much money off of their products, and they said, wait a minute, we're going to come out with something called VPOS, which ultimately turned into Office 365, which now is Microsoft 365. And along the way, MSPs have lost margin. And we believe that this is an opportunity to take that margin back. And that the new commerce experience or the new price increases coming from Microsoft, we believe this is an opportunity to actually take margin back. And when you combine how to protect 365 with how much people use 365, there's value there that you can now provide, and you can take margin back when we talk about 365. Someone have a question? See a chat thing. Okay, Steve's got to go. Okay, cool. Thanks, Steve. So let's talk about the price increase mindset. Before I move on, does anyone have any questions at this point? Do they have any comments they want to share? Again, I want to try to make this as interactive as possible. Okay. And you can take yourself off mute. You don't have to put stuff in the chat if you do have a question. So at the outset, I talked about the fact that Staples acquired my MSP back in 2006. And that was the first really big acquisition of MSP in the space. I learned a really valuable lesson there. So I'm a young CEO of a high-flying MSP, and my boss was this guy by the name of Jay Baitler. He was executive vice president at Staples. He ran what they called SBA, and it was Staples Business Advantage. It was B2B. It was, if you have a small business, Staples, brings office products to your office. That's basically what it was. It was a $5 billion business. Billion with a B. And we're like a month into the acquisition. They acquired us December 22nd, 2006. So this is like January 2007. And he says to me, Jim, you're going to have to condition your customers for a price increase once every 2 years, if not every year. I said, well, Jay, I don't know how it works in the office products business, but we can't do that, man. Like we got too much competition. We're gonna lose customers if we're out doing a 5-10% increase, every year. He said, look, he's like, as long as you're providing value and you're articulating the value that you're actually providing to the customer, they're not going to leave over a 5 or 10% increase. Because here's the thing. Every year you're going to come to me and say, I need to pay my people more. And I'm going to give you probably a 3% budget on giving people a raise across the board. So if you never increase your price, how are we going to pay for those price the raises for your folks? He's like, it can't come out of your margin. Eventually it'll wither away. You need to condition your customers on price increases. All there is to it. So I walked away thinking he was crazy, but he had 30 years of business experience on me. And about 6 months later, we reluctantly went out to the customers with a price increase. And long story short, Jay was right and I was wrong. I can count on one hand out of the 250 customers we had, how many people left us over it. They were the customers that honestly were a pain in the ass we didn't want. Our margins went up, and it forced us to actually really scrutinize our business and understand the value that we were providing each and every customer and put that out there. And it helped us on multiple sides, right? And it helped our customer relationships. And I think that ultimately the reason I call it a mindset is because the mindset that a lot of MSPs have around price increases are in their own heads. Like they just automatically think no one's going to want or is willing to absorb. Obviously, people don't want a price increase, but they're willing to absorb it if you're presenting the value the right way. And that's really the key to that. So this is a valuable lesson that I've learned. And as we move into the Microsoft price increase, right, you have no option but to have a conversation with your customer. We're going to give you messaging about how you can actually go to the customer and say, look, we're going to right size your cost and we're going to right size your protection. And that's the value that we bring to you as your MSP. So moving on, we're going to do this in the context of cybersecurity. We're going to deliver and show the value through the context of security and specifically SaaS security monitoring. MSPs ask me all the time, Jim, how do I separate myself from the crowd? How can I sell more cyber revenue? People buy it from me as probably, the thing that people talk about the most with me. And these days, by the way, if there's never been a better time to sell cybersecurity than right now. Literally today, with all the threats that are out there. So when people ask me the question, how can I separate myself from the crowd? How can I add more cyber revenue? How can I better protect my customers? I turn those questions back on them. I'm like, you need to ask yourself, what technologies are my end customers leveraging the most? Number two, is my MSP doing everything we can to mitigate the risks associated with those technologies that they're using the most? And then lastly, is my MSP mitigating the risk for all of my customers? Not just the ones that are raising your hand and saying, hey, can you give me XYZ products and only selling it to 5 of them? But literally all your customers and their end users. So if you're being honest with yourself and you're asking yourself those questions, the most used technologies your customers are using right now are actually SaaS applications. So SaaS applications have grown tremendously. I mentioned before, that now mid-market companies are using an average of 89 SaaS applications. Small businesses are using somewhere between 20 and 30. I guarantee you that every one of your customers is using, either 365 or Google Workspace. Zoom is high on the list, Dropbox, Slack, Salesforce. These are the applications that small businesses live on every single day. So the question is, how are you protecting these applications? How are you protecting the users leveraging these applications? There's value here in the stack. It's just uncovering it and then telling that story to the customer so they understand what you can do. So ultimately, are you thinking about the evolution of your MSP practice and the value that you can deliver, instead of thinking about the way things have been or used to be? Where are things going and how can you evolve the business to add more value? So let's put it in the context of RMM in device management. Ask yourself this. And you know what? I'm going to put this, if you can all respond, by the way, in the chat to this question. Do you put an RMM agent on every device for your customers? for all your managed customers. So if you just put in the chat if it's a yes or a no. No, just Windows. Okay, just Windows Mac, that's fine. Okay. So when on a percentage basis, the just Windows Mac comment, how many on a percentage basis, how many devices don't you put an RMM agent on? Okay, 5%. Okay, so 95%. 95% of devices you manage, you put an RMM on. Great. Okay, we put 100% on our devices. Okay, great. So this is consistent. When I ask this question to MSPs, this is what I get. Yes, either 90% of my devices get RMM or 100%. Okay. So next question is why? Why do you do it? Anyone want to take themselves off mute and answer this question for us?
Why do we do what? Why do we put them on only 90 or why do we put them on 100?
Why do you use RMM at all? Why do you put RMM on any device?
Well, the monitoring side of it, alerts, remote access, collecting data, reporting, etc.
Mm-hmm.
That's the main reasons. Integration with PSA for ticket integration and that fun stuff.
Mm-hmm. All true. Brian just answered very succinctly and also said, pillar number 1 of NIST, identify. Yep. You need visibility. If you're going to effectively manage your customers, you need visibility into what they're doing. Okay. So that's what you just said. That's what Brian just said. 100%, right? I think we all agree on that answer. So the next question I have for you is why you're not thinking about applications like 365 the same way as we do devices. Anyone want to answer that one?
We are. I mean, we're using Rocket Cyber solutions granted to monitor their mailboxes or the users on 365 and those activities. So it's not an RMM specific, but it's obviously monitoring.
What percentage of your customer base do you have either Rocket Cyber or solutions granted on?
100.
Okay. That's pretty rare. Solutions granted actually uses our product. So the SaaS security monitoring that solutions granted brings to you is through us. But it's pretty rare actually when we talk to MSPs that they say that they put SOC as a service on all of their customers because most of their customers don't want to pay for that level of expenditure.
I love that, Jim, when I have these conversations with clients. I'm sure, Brian, I've heard you speak about it before, and I love your attitude towards that. I just came from my dentist, by the way, an hour and a half ago, and I love that example of a dentist's office where you're going to the dentist and you're not going to tell your dentist, please don't use that compound to glue my crown back that fell off. I wanted to use the one, the cheaper one, or just use super glue because it's the cheapest, the fastest thing to do. I love explaining to clients that example of you can't tell me what you need. You're hiring me so I can tell you what you need. And there's so many awesome examples along that line with, car mechanics and doctors. And, I love that.
Yeah, it's definitely very effective. Right. So Brian says, identification, we do identification of users we support. Can you expand upon that answer, Brian? I'd love to dig into that a little bit.
Well, I was just pointing out, the RMM is essentially where we identify all our devices, but we're missing users at that point. So we use the Microsoft 365 platform to identify all the users we're supporting so that we can then build, a framework around the identification of those. So yeah, I mean, definitely you got to be scanning. I understand your point, right? You've got an RMM on the device you're monitoring. Well, are you monitoring what about the user account at the active, whatever directory you might be using?
Right, exactly. Do you have someone scanning this Microsoft 365 tenant continuously?
Yeah.
All day, every day, 365?
Yeah, we don't have it rolled out to all of our clients yet, but we're using our SOC has a white labeled solution that they use to monitor that for us.
Okay. Who do you use on the SOC side?
It's Blackpoint Cyber.
Yep. I know John Merkinson. I was just with him a couple of weeks ago. Good company. So you understand at this point, everyone understands the concept, right? For years, we've protected devices. We've been device-centric industry, but ultimately tracking users and what the users are doing is paramount at this point, because if I'm on 365, I can log in using any device on 365. If I'm on vacation, I'm in the hotel, I go to the business center and log on using their computer, they're not going to have an RMM on that, So it's important, certainly, to follow the users. So in terms of the Microsoft price increase, I think this is a perfect catalyst now to usher in the age of increased value to the customer. So if 365 is in fact the most leveraged technology in your customers' environments, doesn't it require a level of protection and management that you're currently doing for devices? And ultimately the answer is yes. And if it's just positioned the right way, most customers are going to agree with you. And I can't even tell you how many MSPs I talk to these days that are not positioning this with their customers. Their customers may even think that they're monitoring 365 and they're really not. And if they were to position this to their customer the right way, the customer is going to agree, yes, we should be doing something. Like, if you need to charge me extra for it, okay, let's do that. So the key messaging is make sure the customer knows the importance of protecting 365. In that if you're not doing it, make sure they know that you're not doing it. The value an MSP can provide, certainly securing 365 has been elevated through a number of different services, whether it's be SaaS alerts or SOC as a service. It's really important that they know that and understand it and what you can do for them. And then ultimately make sure that the customer knows that you're able to right size their protection and cost based on their specific needs. So the Microsoft licensing package, licensing model, I should say, is really it's a rat's nest. It's super confusing. Half the time I don't think they even really understand what they're putting out. So one of the things that we've done is we put together some go-to-market messaging around it. But what I'm going to do now actually is share with you a calculator that we've had put together. So we hired a third-party marketing company, product marketing company, to put this calculator together for MSPs. Again, you will not find our logo on here or anything. This is for you. You can email us at sales@saasalerts.com after this and ask for it. We'll give it to you. You don't have to be a partner of ours to get this.
You're trying to share something other than PowerPoint. It's not showing.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate the heads up because I was sharing something. And there it is. Can you see that?
Yep.
There you go. Okay, cool. Okay. So why did we do this? Why did we spend a lot of money with an outside product marketing company to put this together for MSPs. Well, as we talked about, it's pretty the Microsoft licensing model is pretty confusing. Is it Office 365? Is it Microsoft 365? You know, what features and functions make sense for my customers? You know, trying to bring all of this information into a central place. Nobody's really done it for the MSP community. So what we wanted to do was give you a tool that allows you to come in here and just select whatever program that, or whatever product line that you want. Let's see. Should do it. Here we go. So this is a drop down. Okay, so this is your product line, and you can pick, for instance, 365 for business, for enterprise, you know, Office 365 for enterprise. Change it. You can change it right there. We'll go back to business, and then the plan itself. Okay, basic, standard, premium. We'll stick with premium. We like premium because it gives you the P1 license included in that. We believe there's a lot of value in there. And then, you know, everyone's got, you know, their own percentage that they're getting from a discount standpoint from Microsoft, whether you're CSP direct or indirect. You know, we'll just keep it kind of in the middle, 18%. And then you can decide, do you want to include SaaS security monitoring in this? Okay. So if it's yes, okay, great. We'll do that. And we can price this at $3. Just so you know, we charge 50 cents to the MSP. So we're just taking $3 and saying, okay, take $2.50 margin. And then this is your comparison package, right? So is the customer, you know, planning on, if they're on E3 right now, they're planning on moving over to E3 with the, you know, when the new prices come out. This has got all the new prices included in here. So we can, in this case, we can just compare this to E3, and then it gives you an output. Okay. And this is the custom package right here. And then this is the comparison package. Okay. So it's $25 to $36. Our margin on a dollar basis is $6.46 compared to $6.48, but our margin percentage, right, is 26%. Instead of giving all the margin to Microsoft, you're actually taking more margin back, which is what we want to do, right? So one of the things that, if you look here, right, you can collapse these different areas or expand them if you want. You can look at the different features across the board for every single package on a comparison basis. You know, one of the things that we like to do here is, if you look at, this is a comparison package right here, right? Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps. You're not getting that in E3, but SaaSource is the closest thing to Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps within the Microsoft ecosystem. You might be familiar with CAS, and that is automatically included in the E5 package, which is $57. So this is where we start talking about, okay, right-sizing the protection and right-sizing their costs. E5 is more than double a business premium with third-party SaaS security monitoring added to it. Right? So we can save our customers a lot of money and give them the protection they need that allows us to better service them, as opposed to making sure that they're going to a much more expensive package, right? So again, you're putting yourself in a thought leadership position by helping them understand what they get, what they don't get, and how these different packages, or at least the features in these packages, are displayed. And then you get an output comparison here, It gives you a summary based on the custom package you put together for them and the comparison package. You get some pro tips here on how to position that with the customer. If you're going to include SaaS alerts or SaaS security monitoring, use some of the talking points that you're going to want to layer in. And then this is pretty cool because, again, this is all dynamic depending on what you're picking. So this shows you dynamically what's excluded from the comparison package and what's included in the package that you have selected for them, right? So, and then ultimately you get this, if you want to give this to your customer, right? This is a printout, doesn't have any of our stuff on it, of course, but this is something that you can just literally print out, give to the customer and say, okay, this is what we've been able to do for you in terms of right-sizing your protection or right-sizing your costs. We're going to monitor 365 from a third-party perspective. And we're going to give you a plan that makes sense for your business. And we compare it to an E3 license in this case, which costs $36. We're going to save you $11. But we're going to give the protection you deserve because we're doing SaaS security monitoring on top of it. So whether you're using us or another service, this is an argument that you can now make. So any questions on the calculator? Any questions? Okay. This calculator is, I can't even tell you how many times we've sent this thing out over the last 3 weeks. So again, if you want it, just email us at sales@saasalerts.com. Okay, so now I'll head back into presentation where I left off, share here, and we got about 5 minutes until I'm going to hand off to Ryan. So here's some of the go-to-market messaging and materials that we came up with for MSPs. So the Microsoft Security Plan and the Microsoft Security Plus plan. So ultimately, what we have here is identifying or highlighting to the customer that Microsoft 365 is the most widely used application in your stack. With that amount of usage comes risk. We want to mitigate that risk. We're going to do it with a third party. Okay.
Do you mind making the slide full screen? It's hard to see anything there.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you for mentioning that. So ultimately, we want to check Microsoft's own logic. We want to put third-party monitoring in place. We're going to monitor 50 different events in the 365 environment for you. Some of those events include, bad actors successfully logging in from outside approved locations, internal or bad actors, downloading excessive amounts of information from the environment, security policy changes, devices coming into the environment, email forwarding, which is the first thing a bad actor will do if they get a hold of a environment. You can do this for your customers. We have partners that are selling this to their customers for $3 per user per month, and they're not doing any remediation. What they're doing is saying, look, we're going to provide the third-party monitoring. We're going to deliver a report in your inbox every single month showing you the activity in that tenant. And it's charts, it's graphs, it's real, it's not ones and zeros. It's stuff they're going to be able to understand. Okay.
Any sample report that you can show how your system spits out that information as a report?
100%. Ryan's going to go through that in a second here. That's why I've got him here. So, and then in your normal cadence, right, you're going to be able to answer questions around that report, whether you meet with them monthly or quarterly, whatever, you're going to be able to answer those questions. And then you can say this in terms of adding additional value. Mr. and Mrs. Customer, we put the 365 in 365. What does that mean? That means that in the default packages on 365, with the exception of the default packages on 365, with the exception of E5, They give you 90 days log retention. Every other package gives you 30 days log retention. With this additional value we're giving you, we're going to give you access to 365 days. Why is that important? So if something with an employee ever happened, 4 or 5 months, you want to look back, we'll be able to look back and look to see what they were doing. If there's ever a breach, we can go in and we can look at root cause, 60, 90, 120 days out. Okay, it's important, and we can now provide that for you. The Security Plus plan is everything we just talked about, plus you're actually going to, in real time, leverage your folks to monitor and remediate the events as they occur, eliminate those guest user accounts that should be eliminated every single month, and those orphan links that we talked about before. Okay, and we've got MSPs that are charging somewhere between $5 and $10 per user per month for this specific package. Okay, so this is just a screenshot. Ryan's going to go through the actual reporting app with you, but this is a risk report that shows all the bad actors in the world trying to get into your SaaS environment, total attacks and file shares and so forth. This is how easy it is. It's basically four clicks on the email address to set up the automated reporting. Lastly, on the thought leadership piece and about these conversations that you can be having with your customers around the price increase. So first of all, trusted advisor, thought leader has been thrown about quite a bit in our industry for a long time, something that MSPs, quote unquote, need to be. It's been a challenge to get there for some of us. This is a great opportunity. One thing that we know is through our platform that the number one application, the number one third-party application that small businesses are logging into using their 365 credentials is Zoom. When you think about it, okay, it's not surprising, but when you really dig in, you're thinking, wait a second, they're paying for redundant features and functionality. If they're getting Teams with Microsoft, and then they're paying for Zoom. So what we did was we actually put together a comparison chart to say, if you have a customer that is using Zoom, but they're getting Teams, you can have the conversation and say, hey, look, let's try to offset some of this price increase with canceling some Zoom accounts. Right now, they're gonna be like, "Oh my God, I love you. You're actually coming to me with some real solutions here that's going to try to save me some money." Okay. Obviously, we don't have anything to do with SaaS alerts on this, but when we started looking at our own data, it was like it's unbelievable how many people that are using Teams are also using Zoom. So, and it's all small business data. So we want to be able to hand this stuff over to you guys. So again, if you want the calculator, if you want the sales sheets, by the way, if you're one of our partners, you get a free license of Zomentum for all of 2022. If you don't know what Zomentum is, it's a sales enablement platform. We'll give the team a Zoom comparison chart. And then, we've got the 30-day free trial, no obligation whatsoever, unlimited users. This is all for your customers. And then it's 50 cents per user per month after the trial is over. And if you want us to come in and do a lunch and learn for some of your customers, we'll actually, pay, for the Uber Eats gift cards to do that lunch and learn. So before I hand it off to Ryan, any questions, comments on anything I just went over? Okay, I see. Okay, great. So, Ryan, I'm going to let you take it away here to review the product.
Thank you. Hey guys, it's great for you. Great to talk to you, and we really appreciate you guys taking the time to chat with us and hear us out. I'll take it as a positive that the couple of you guys that did weigh in and say that you do take the SaaS security as seriously as you do your local stuff. I think that's awesome. I wouldn't really expect anything less from people that take the time to join MSP roundtables and collaborate with their partners and their peers. So I get to do the show part of our show and tell today. It's going to be relatively brief, but I do thrive on interaction. So please, by all means, if you see a button I don't click and you want me to click it, throw it at me. And I don't want to bury the lead here. So one of the things I'm going to do at the end, if you guys want to take advantage of what Jim had offered in the beginning and just, kick the tires on this by taking care of yourselves, eating your own dog food, as it were, monitoring IT Glue if you have it, or run this alongside or as ancillary to whatever you believe you're using now that you're comfortable with. I'll walk you through where you go and how to register for that. I'm going to give you a code to put in so that you guys get it for free for 90 days. So I'll explain all of that. But before I do, I'm glad some of you guys used analogies earlier in the day, because that's pretty much my entire shtick. One of the things that one of the guys in our company uses, his name's Pat, is he says he's more of a teach a man to fish than give a man a fish kind of guy. And I appreciate that, but my concern is if you don't know what a fish is, or you don't know that you can eat them, why would you put the effort in to go fishing? So there's no point in teaching someone to fish. They don't know what the hell you're talking about. So let me show you the fish first, and then I'll show you how to go catch one if you so desire. There are two key parts to this that are important. And the design of it, as Jim alluded to earlier, is really aggregating data that to some extent you have some level of access to, or you're trusting that your SOC is monitoring, but aggregating it into one spot and integrating with the tools that you guys use day in and day out to ensure that you understand what's going on in your client environments. And then the other half of this is to help educate your base about what's going on in their environments and what could be happening were you not putting the effort in that you're putting in. So in the management platform, you can kind of see here what we've got going in for the day in and day out. When you log in, once you're registered, it'll give you what's been going on lately, and you can filter obviously by how far back you want to go across whomever you're monitoring and whatever you're monitoring. This is our lab environment, so it's primarily built around stuff that we're doing. But at a quick glance, it lets you know what's happening here. One of the things that people tend to complain about when you're looking through logs is, and as long as I've been in a computer-oriented job, looking through logs has been a nightmare, is you tend to filter through a lot of stuff you don't care about to find the stuff you do care about. So there's simplicity in the design of this where you can go in and be a little bit more proactive in saying, these are the things that I care about that I want you guys to show me, and actually specify the severity. And you can see Jim mentioned some of the apps that we work with. You can go in and say, hey, look, I need to know, I want a ticket in my PSA. If some application, external API tries to connect to this stuff and doesn't work. But I've got MFA on all my clients, so I don't really see the need to be alerted every time somebody fat fingers their password. Maybe I want to know if they fat finger it 3 times in 10 minutes. So you can get really granular and specific about what it is that you think warrants your attention, and make sure you're only getting the information that you care about. Things that are actionable, that you can actually demonstrate value to your client with by going in and saying, hey, I noticed you're having a hard time logging in. And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm not trying to log in. All right, well, now there's something that we need to take a look at. Do you have MFA enabled? We might want to enable that because someone's trying to log in. The data set and these rules are very valuable to set that up. You can also kind of monitor in real time what's going on across your customer base, specify if somebody is complaining of an issue or a concern that something's different in their set. You can go in and find out, what's going on with that specific guy. What alerts have we been getting for him today? And we use a pretty well-known or pretty reliable IP address monitoring system, which will actually give you information if you see IP addresses that might not be where you expect them to be. That lets you know if these people or these IP addresses are tagged as known threats or known abusers. And this will also turn red if it is from somebody that is a risk. So all of this is kind of internal, and the design of this is literally for you guys to be able to go in and do somewhat of an analysis of what's been going on for a client and provide some information to them if there's something that you feel you need to show them. The part that I think is more valuable than just the management bit is really the education of your clients, and that's in the reporting. So the reporting, if you didn't notice, is a click down here. It pops this open. And this is what Jim had. And he had what I can only describe as an absolute dumpster fire of an alert from when one of our partners first added a large client and they just saw all of the login attempts. But this is ours, and this is a pretty normal day for us. So this is one of the reports that you can schedule. And the reason I find that incredibly important is one of the challenges in my old life of demonstrating value in IT was there's a bit of a saying in internal IT that you've got a good IT guy if you don't see him very often. For an MSP, that's not really the case. You kind of have to constantly remind them why you're using your toolkit and demonstrate value behind the tools that they can consume. And most adults in any business function can understand the difference between green dots and red dots. So being able to automatically send a report monthly or weekly, or send it to yourself and use it as part of an audit to explain to your customers, hey, look, this is important. And the reason we take the steps that we take are because you guys don't have anybody operating out of the EU, but you sure as hell have people trying to log in from the EU. So if we didn't have multi-factor authentication enabled, if we didn't have the SaaS cybersecurity monitoring tool, if we weren't, monitoring your information the way that we are, there's a much higher likelihood that some of these people are ultimately going to be successful in getting in, logging in, and modifying your data. And that's not a risk they're willing to take. So the reporting is probably one of the key parts of this for your customer use. It's also very valuable for you guys internally if you want to just have an extra set of eyes on the way that your data works. You go and you specify the frequency. You can specify which of the many reports that we have that you want to send out, specify for whom you want to send it, and then to whom you want to send it. We've seen a couple of different variations on how people choose to use this. If you're doing this in part of the Microsoft security plan and not the plus, sometimes it's nice to just send this out weekly and say, hey, here's what we saw, especially if it's a green report and everything looks great. You as the MSP, you're showing them, hey, we're doing everything we can to make sure you're secure, and the proof is in this report. Everything's good to go. All of the steps that we have taken have secured you. If the report comes back red, then you have to go in and you get to say, hey, look, we caught this because of the tool set, because we're the ones paying attention and monitoring your systems. You set those up. For your internals, maybe you want to set it weekly and you want it to pitch into your PSA as an individual ticket and task a tech with reviewing it every week. If you do use IT Glue, we know that is to some extent a keys to the kingdom and a very, very handy tool, but one that you want to maintain security of. So just adding this to your IT Glue to monitor internally, especially with what's going on right now in the world. I'm not sure how many of you guys were half watching the news while listening to us here, but it'd be very valuable just to at least have eyes on and be aware of any, unfamiliar logins or logins from outside of approved locations. Impossible travel is a big one, where it basically tells you like, hey, this guy just logged in from Louisiana, and then 3 hours later he logged in from Paris. Now, I don't think the Concorde could even make it that fast. It gives you the ability to go in and not only know that, but quantify it to somebody who might not be super keen or super clear on, exactly what they should be caring about or what they should be worried about. And all of this is something you can drill into further. So you can see here, and I'm going to go back into the reporting here in a second, or into the management to show you how you get this. You can see here that these are just the bad ones. These are things that we've noticed that don't make sense. And you'll notice I do have one that's multiple authentication failures, but it's in the US. One of the cool things about this product is in the management for your organizations, you can get about as granular as you want. You can tell them that, look, everybody's in the United States. So for the whole company, let's whitelist the United States. But if they have one guy that works outside of somewhere else, maybe they have a VCIO that's in a different country, or you guys have some production guys that are out in Europe. You can go in per user and actually supersede the company rules with a whitelist specific to the users. If your techs that are logging into IT Glue are using a dedicated VPN to get into something local because that's a really secure way of handling it, you can whitelist just that IP address range. And then you'll always get alerted if somebody logs in from outside of that. So there's a lot of useful ways to design this. If you're paying attention, you see to the right here, file events trigger. If you want to set something for a specific, for a default customer base, look, if this guy tries to download 10 files in 10 seconds, let us know, because that's a little weird behavior. But maybe their marketing person's a little bit more aggressive. Look, if she goes and tries to delete 100 things in a row, alert us about that as well. You get a lot of granularity, and you get to aggregate all of the data across all of those reports from all of those different tenants into one thing that's easy to consume, integrates with your PSA, and provides an output that shows value to the end users and reinforces behavior that we want of them. One of the things that happened with us recently, and it was with our Slack integration, is actually to our best practices. We have that suppress feature. which is kind of handy if you've got somebody out on vacation. So we had one of our members went out on a delayed honeymoon, we'll call it, and she went out of the country. So we don't want to change the whitelist rules every time somebody goes to a road show or goes on vacation. So what we can do when we see these alerts come through and it shows somebody outside of an approved location, we can reach out to them and say, hey, you're not where you usually are. Maybe reach out to their manager and just check in. Saw you logged in from here. If it's true, you have this option to suppress and specify a date range. Yeah, he's going to be out there for the next 6 days. He should be back by Wednesday of next week. Cool. All right. So for the next 6 days, we're going to suppress the alerts about him being in that location. And then when he comes back, it'll kick back up and bring us right back to where we were. So these are a lot of things that would be a manual effort for your part that you don't have to have be a manual piece. You can still get the alerts. You can still put it out in a way that's user friendly and consumable, even by your low level techs. And for the price point, to Jim's point, most people don't even bat an eye at the premise of including something that's going to give them the peace of mind that they ultimately want. In fact, in my, again, previous life when I was working for an MSP, tools like this were usually brought up after pitching the Arctic Wolfs and the Rocket Cybers and things of the world that come with quite a bit of configuration and a larger price point. And another analogy I like to equate it to is if you're a parent and you have a small child, you don't ask them if they want vegetables with dinner because you know the answer. No, I hate vegetables. You ask them if they want broccoli or carrots, and they get to pick and they feel good they got to pick, and you did good because you got them something that they need to grow and be healthy. So at the very least, having a SaaS cybersecurity platform that can quite literally just ensure that you have eyes on glass for what's going on in their infrastructure or their SaaS applications, rather, should be table stakes. It should be the bare minimum. Look, you're getting vegetables. You have to. So these are your options. Or if you don't want them, it won't work on a kid, but it'll work on a customer. You need to sign here and say that I'm not responsible for when shit hits the fan. And those denial of service text or not a text letters are usually pretty impactful too. And I'm sure you guys have had those conversations as well. But really what we want to make sure you're doing, and again, I'm glad some of you are, is at least having the tools in place to see and to remediate issues as they come across, and then demonstrate that value to your end users and explain to them what is happening, what attacks are occurring, and what steps you're taking to ensure their security. Because if they don't know they're happening, they're not going to care to defend against it. And that's where that education piece comes in, those cybersecurity trainings and awareness trainings. This is a very valuable tool to add to that. It is awfully quiet, and I'm getting sick of the sound of my own voice. Does anybody have any input about what they like about what theirs does, or how they're accomplishing this without a tool like this? Please unmute and talk to me.
I've got a question.
Sure.
So are you looking to get into more kind of CASB type stuff where you're integrating with things like Salesforce, or even, where you're monitoring activity in other widely used cloud applications where you might be concerned about suspicious behavior happening?
So
Yes.
Jim went on video, so I assume he wants to weigh in on this, but I'm going to answer immediately with, we do integrate with Salesforce. Okay. And yes, that is definitively something we want to do. And again, largely around the MSP space, we want to enable you guys to be secure in the tool set that you guys rely on day in and day out. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah. So right now, just it's 365, it's Google Workspace, it's Salesforce, it's Dropbox, it's Slack. And then we'll be adding Zoom and a couple other major SaaS applications that were on that list. And then by the end of the year, we should also all the major MSP tools as well. So we started with IT Glue. Do you use IT Glue, Brian?
No, we don't.
Okay. What RMM are you on?
Datto RMM.
He's got a big old Datto flag behind him, Jim.
Oh, no, that's right. I should pick that up. So we'll get to Datto and you will have all the RMMs as well. But for the MSP, it's free. Like, we're not going to charge you for the MSP tools or monitor your own SaaS applications.
And then as far as your pricing goes, do you, I imagine for each application you add, there's like an extra cost for monitoring that, or how does that work? No?
It's flat, 50 cents. Doesn't matter how many applications you have.
Okay. And then are you kind of helping assist us with understanding what suspicious behavior to look for, right? Like if I'm integrating with Salesforce, there's going to be certain activity that we're going to be concerned about, but I'm not going to be able to reinvent the wheel and think of that all off the top of my head. So I'm assuming when you build these out, you're kind of understanding what activity to look for and alert based on.
Yeah. So the great thing about the application is that in the manage aspect of it, not more of the reports right now. So first of all, think about the architecture of the product, MRR, not monthly recurring revenue, even that's what we hopefully facilitate. Think manage, report, remediate. Those are 3 different modules within the application. Now, right now, you're looking at manage. Before, when we were in report, and remediate is coming out in about a month. So in manage here, when you see a critical alert, it will give you a recommendation, remediation step right there. Okay. To go in, even if you're level 1, tier 1 tech, right, you're going to at least have a inkling of an idea of what to do because we're telling you what to do.
Okay.
And then remediate, if you opt into that module, then it'll automatically do things for you. Or just click a couple buttons and it'll do it out of the application itself, as opposed to having to dive into the SaaS tenant to do stuff. That'll be a game changer.
And actually a little bit more diving into, are you going to help us understand how this works? That's kind of what we want to accomplish here. Like Steve mentioned in the beginning, this is going to be a 2-parter. One of the things that we're hoping you guys will join us and do this. One of the things we want to do, and the next piece of what I'm going to talk about will only take a minute, is we're going to offer you the opportunity to go in and I'll walk you through the process if you at least just want to see how this works. We're not recommending you do anything, extra creative. Like you want to attach to IT Glue if you use it, attach it to your own Office 365 environment or G Suite or whatever you use, and just let the data populate. And then the next time we meet with you guys, we want to go through it with you and show it's like, hey, who wants to show us some of the stuff they got and kind of walk through, the configuration and kind of teach you guys. This is how most of us are using it. This is our best practices. These are the alerts that we put the most attention on, and kind of help you guys understand what things are scary and what things might be noisy. We still want to keep them. We still want every log, whether it seems silly or not. Like we follow every time somebody successfully logs in from where they're allowed to be. It's still valuable to know, and some nosy manager might want to know if somebody who claimed they're going to be working from home today actually logged in from home. The audit logs are there. On the critical side, we want to make sure we report and we throw those into a PSA if there's something that warrants your attention. So beyond what we're doing for you guys as part of MSP-Ignite, we also have a pretty meaty onboarding process where we would like to, if you guys ever become a partner, actually go through onboarding with you, help you set up the scheduled reports, add your customers, teach you how to authenticate, set up those scheduled reports to go out to them, and then kind of hand you a fully functioning, workable SaaS security platform to go off and manage, knowing that it's built to best practice. That's a very big part of it. Ultimately, you guys get fewer tickets in from it, and we get fewer tickets in from you guys if we help you set it up.
But and do you support porting this out to like a SIM or anything, centralized logging?
Yeah,
Yes.
So pretty much anything you do in those reports or those alerts, you can have sent out into either a PSA or via email into whatever else you want to send it into. We've got integrations, obviously, that Jim mentioned, and we're working on more of them. I know we are actually pretty close to the was a Ninja One, Jim. I think we're going to have back in that list pretty soon here as well. So you've got a lot of options to push the data out the way you'd like to see it, and specify what data you want to see.
Yeah. Also, if you go into settings, you'll see, for instance, if you have a SIM that you use and you want this data actually going through the SIM, you can leverage the webhooks or the API, which is at the bottom of the screen. We have some pretty large private equity-backed MSPs that are using ServiceNow, and they don't go into the console at all. All they do actually is consume our webhooks in real time, and that populates ServiceNow. We also work, I mentioned before, with Solutions Granted. So Solutions Granted SaaS security monitoring is actually SaaS alerts, and they're doing it through our webhooks.
So you don't have like a traditional syslog, not that that's the best way to handle that, but you can do webhooks or API call.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
We have a lot of those built out that we share with our partners, so it's not like you have to go in and create anything. We've got a repository of ones that are designed. So any other questions before I show you guys what we'd like you to do with us going forward here? All right, this part's fairly straightforward. If you guys feel like it, you can go along with me. If you don't, I don't think you guys will have a hard time understanding it. It's as simple as going to saasalerts.com. If you click this start trial button, you're going to be asked for some pretty basic information about yourself. We're offering this for you guys to protect yourselves throughout this, for the next several months. So we would suggest you enter your own information here. On the second page of it, on the payment information, there is I'm going to post this in the chat because this is important. There is a promo code that we want you guys to use. It's MSP free 90. And if you guys enter that, it basically tells us that we are not going to be billing you, that you guys are going to be using this as part of this, what we're trying to do to help you guys out during this little bit of a challenging set. So you enter your info here, specify how you want to log in. To Jim's point, everybody would love you to log in with Google or Microsoft. You can specify any other way that you'd like to do it. Go in, enter the promo code, go through that process, and then you'll get to that organizations page that I showed on the other one. As soon as you're approved, you'll end up in SaaS alerts. You go into organizations here, and you effectively are going to be able to add to this whatever it is for yourself. So you'll see here, you're doing MSP onboarding. This is you, and you kind of just go in and specify which things you want to add. Ultimately, if you pick one, if you're doing something through, ignore that, I already have this set up. If you're doing it through IT Glue, you generate an API key. It'll walk you through pretty straightforward how to go ahead and tie this to that. And once you've got it successfully connected, much like that Microsoft one you see, you'll get a little check mark next to it. It'll very quickly begin pulling in data, not just from the starting point of when you did it, but we'll actually go back a little ways in time and give you some stuff to immediately review, to see what's been going on recently in my history, maybe make some changes. And then this report will actually allow you to see, are the changes that I'm implementing reducing the attack vectors that I'm currently experiencing? So if you guys take the time to go through that and sign up, we'll get you approved very quickly, start kicking the tires on it. And when we come back and meet, we'd really love your feedback on what you like and what you think maybe would be great for future releases, and any comparisons to what you're currently doing now.
How long is that code good for? Because I'm actually in the middle of not only the Microsoft NCE stuff before the March 1st, but I also have a LionGuard deployment we're working on. If I signed up, say, April, is that code still going to be good?
Yeah.
I think we had it set through into March, but Jim can fix that.
So
okay,
we're doing the IT Glue 365 monitoring for MSPs for the first 500 MSPs.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, no worries. So
if you can get in, and this won't be announced to the general public and probably till early next week. So okay, I don't know how fast it will go, but so that's the answer. And then you'll be able to do it through June 30th. So we're giving everyone until June 30th to use it that way. Okay.
Yeah, it sucks when you're in the middle of another tool and you're like, oh, I want to try this out, but I have zero time right now,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the new shiny tool, the new shiny object syndrome. It's like,
yeah, no, I hear you. But one of the things that we wanted to do with this was for folks that wanted to, session number 2, right, is focused on exactly the question that you had asked, Brian, which is, okay, let's review some of the stuff that's been coming in for the last couple of weeks. That's why we pushed it to March 10th.
Sure.
To give ourselves a couple of weeks to be able to actually get some data in there and show you guys the value that you could be bringing to your customer.
Right. So I have to run, guys. Okay. But sorry I popped in late. It's been one of those crazy days for me, but I look forward to the next webinar. Thank you for your time today.
Okay.
Thanks, Brett. Just to recap for the rest of you folks that are still with us, if you're going to get the calendar, or I'm sorry, the calculator and all those cool things. Laura already mentioned she's going to email it out to everybody that attended. We hope you guys do use it. If you come across any questions or any hangups in the process, sales@saasalerts.com is actually monitored by me. So I'll be happy to get back to you and answer anything anytime that you need us. We appreciate you guys being interactive and taking the time to listen in.